So this HOA Karen calls 911 because I parked my boat in my own driveway, not blocking traffic, not breaking laws, just polishing it before the weekend. She marches over clipboard in one hand, phone in the other, screaming about community standards and unsightly property. Then she actually says it. If you can afford a boat, maybe move to the marina instead. Funny thing is, I am the marina, every slip, every dock, every drop of water she likes to brag about jogging past each morning. So while she's dialing 911 like she just uncovered a crime, I'm already on the phone telling my harbor manager to pull every HOA member's boat from my docks by sunset. Because when you try to shame someone for what they earned, you might just sink your own ship. The afternoon sun hit like fire that day, glinting off chrome, bouncing off the quiet houses lined in perfect symmetry. A neighborhood so obsessed with order, even the mailboxes looked identical. But right in the middle of that calm stood my boat, 30 feet of shining white fiberglass, polished deck, fresh paint, American flag fluttering from the stern, a symbol of years of work, sacrifice, and early mornings that most of these people would never understand. I had just finished washing its soap bubbles sliding down like champagne on glass when I heard her voice. Sharp, piercing, dripping with fake concern. Sir, you can't park that here. There she was, Karen. Pink visor, clipboard, HOA badge hanging like a medal of power. She was marching down the driveway like she owned the block. This is a violation, she said, eyes darting to the boat's name written in gold letters. Freedom Tide, how ironic, she muttered, scribbling something down. I took a breath, tried to stay calm. It's my driveway, I said evenly, just cleaning it for the weekend. It'll be gone in an hour. But Karen wasn't listening. She never did. She lifted her phone. You people think the rules don't apply to you. I'm calling the HOA and the police. And she did, right there in front of my daughter, who was sitting on the porch with a lemonade. Within 15 minutes, the quiet street turned into a scene from a bad cop show. A cruiser rolled up, lights flashing, neighbors peeking from their blinds, recording from their phones. The officer stepped out, hand resting casually on his belt. Afternoon, he said, his tone polite but tired. We got a report about an illegal vehicle blocking the road. I looked around, there was no blockage. The boat sat perfectly within my property line, tires on my concrete. Karen jumped in before I could speak. Officer, this man is violating Community Code 12:4. 3 oversized recreational vehicles are prohibited. He's disturbing the aesthetic. The cop raised an eyebrow. The aesthetic, yes, she said, puffing up like a peacock. We have standards here. He turned to me. Sir, do you have proof of ownership for the property? I nodded, pulled up the deed on my phone. But Karen cut in again, louder this time. Officer, he's been warned before. He thinks he's above the law because of that boat. That's when something in me cracked, not in anger, but in disbelief. Because this wasn't about a boat. It was about control, about a woman who built herself. Worth on enforcing rules she didn't create. I looked at the officer and smiled. You know what's funny? She told me to take it to the marina instead. He chuckled softly. That'd be the smart move. Yeah, I said. Except I own the marina. Karen froze. The officer blinked. Come again. He asked. I own the Freedom Marina. I said calmly. Down by the waterfront. 60. 3 slips, 34 tenants. Full legal operation. And this. I tapped the boat is registered under that business. The cop's expression shifted. Karen's didn't. She just turned red, like someone had pulled the rug out from under her perfect little HOA world. Wait, you own that place, she stammered. The one with the new docks and restaurant. I nodded. That's the one. For a moment, silence. Then the radio on the cop's shoulder crackled, breaking the tension. He spoke into it, confirming no violation, no obstruction. Then turned to me. Sir, you're fine. Just keep it within your driveway like this, and you're good. Karen's jaw dropped. But that boat is hideous. It ruins the neighborhood view. The officer looked at her, tone flat now. Ma'am, calling 911 over a parked boat isn't an emergency. You're wasting department time. You could almost hear her heart shatter. The same woman who called the cops for someone's grass being too tall was now being scolded by one. When the cruiser left, she didn't. She stayed there, trembling with rage. You think this is over? She hissed. The HOA will handle you." I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "No, Karen, you handled yourself." That night, the street went quiet again, but the silence wasn't peace. It was pressure, something heavy in the air, because I wasn't done. Not after she tried to humiliate me in front of my kid. Not after she weaponized power she never earned. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through my contacts, and tapped one name, Harbor Office. "Hey, Mike," I said, "do me a favor, check the list of boat owners from Maple Ridge HOA, you know, the one that keeps calling about dock fees." "Got it." He said, "What do you want me to do?" I smiled. "By tomorrow morning. I want every single HOA member's boat off my property. No docking, no refueling, no access." He paused. "Even the treasurer." "Especially the treasurer," I said. As I hung up, I looked at the reflection of my boat under the streetlight. It wasn't just fiberglass and paint anymore. It was a symbol of standing up, of drawing a line, because sometimes revenge isn't loud. It's quiet, like the sound of water pulling away from the shore right before the tide turns. The next morning, the neighborhood woke to chaos. It started with whispers, faint, unsure, then panic. By sunrise, it was a full-blown meltdown. Phones buzzed. Group chats exploded. The HOA members were calling, messaging, begging because when they showed up at the marina that morning, every single one of their boats was gone. Not damaged, not stolen, just gone. Every slip was empty. Every keycard deactivated. Every gate locked with a fresh silver padlock. And on each dock post, taped in plastic, was a printed note. "Access temporarily suspended pending policy review. Contact the Freedom Marina office for reinstatement. Management." Except there was no number, no email, just the letterhead with my name. By 9 a.m., Karen was already pacing outside my house, heels clicking against the driveway, holding her phone like a weapon. I watched from the window, sipping coffee. She wasn't alone this time. 2 HOA board members had joined her: Greg, the vice president, and a nervous woman named Susan, who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. They were arguing quietly at first, then louder. Greg pointed toward the marina in the distance, shouting something about contracts and authority. Karen was shaking her head, red-faced, and even from inside my living room, I could tell she was losing control. When I stepped outside, her eyes locked on me like a hawk spotting prey. She snapped. "You can't just shut down an entire marina." I smiled calmly. "Actually, I can. It's private property. You're destroying this community," she screamed. "People have weekend plans. There's a charity yacht brunch tomorrow." "Then maybe," I said, leaning on the fence. "You should have thought of that before you called 911 on me over my own boat." Her lips trembled. "This is retaliation." "No," I said, "this is accountability." Greg cut in. "Come on, Karen. You really called the cops over that." She spun toward him. "He broke the rules." Greg sighed, rubbing his temples. "You're making us all look bad. Do you realize the marina's under his ownership? Half our members dock there." That's when the other neighbor, Susan, spoke softly. "Maybe it's time we talk about new leadership." The silence that followed was heavy. You could almost hear her title slipping away in the wind. Karen blinked fast, trying to process it. Her empire, her clipboard, her control, her fake sense of power was cracking, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. I turned toward my driveway, my voice calm but deliberate. "Karen, last night when you called the cops on me, my daughter was watching from that porch. She's 10. She asked me why the police were here, asked if we did something wrong." I paused. "That's when I realized you don't care about rules. You care about control, and you've used it to bully people for too long." For a second, something human flickered in her eyes, guilt, fear, maybe both. Then, as quickly as it came, it was gone, replaced by that familiar cold glare. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "Maybe," I said, walking back inside, "but you'll remember it." By noon, the story had spread beyond our street. People from other neighborhoods started driving by, curious. The HOA gossip network, faster than any news station, was in full swing. Everywhere she went, Karen heard whispers. At the grocery store, At the cafe, at the school fundraiser, isn't that the lady who called 911 over a boat? She got everyone's docks shut down. She's the reason the Marina's off limits now. And every rumor hit harder than any fine she ever wrote. By the third day, the HOA called for an emergency meeting. I wasn't invited, but I didn't need to be. Half the neighborhood showed up in person, the other half tuned in over Zoom. From what I later heard, it was chaos. People shouting, demanding explanations, asking why their access had been revoked, why the HOA reputation was collapsing, and why their treasurer Karen had made herself the villain of every conversation. One man stood up, apparently furious. "My boat's stuck behind the gate because of you, Karen. Do you even realize how much business this neighborhood has lost because of your ego?" She tried to defend herself, saying it was just enforcement, but no one bought it. The final blow came from Greg himself. He stood, slammed his binder shut, and said, "Karen, we can't keep cleaning up after your mistakes. You've cost this HOA more in reputation than in actual fines. Effective immediately, you're suspended pending removal." According to Susan, who later sent me a discreet thank you note, Karen stormed out in tears. The clipboard, left behind on the table, like a crown dropped in defeat. That evening, I drove to the Marina. The sunset painted the water in gold, waves glimmering like liquid fire. I walked along the empty docks, listening to the echo of my footsteps and the soft lap of the tide. It was quiet, peaceful, the way it should have always been. Mike, my harbor manager, approached with a small smile. "All HOA boats are still gone," he said. "They're calling nonstop. Want to reopen?" I looked out at the horizon where the sun melted into the water and shook my head. "Not yet," I said. "Let them sit with it for a while. Let them feel what it's like to lose something they took for granted." He nodded, understanding. Sometimes silence speaks louder than confrontation. As I stood there, the reflection of my boat shimmered beside me, freedom tide. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about respect. And the message was clear. You can't drown integrity with authority. Because real power doesn't come from clipboards or meetings or empty rules. It comes from knowing who you are and refusing to bow when someone tries to shrink you. The tide rolled in again, soft and rhythmic. Somewhere behind me, I thought I heard laughter, my daughter's light and free. She was skipping stones, the same way she did before all this began. And in that sound, there was peace, the kind Karen could never find, control, or take away. The next morning, the headlines did what Karen never could: silence an entire HOA. Local HOA accused of trespassing on private marina property. Harbor owner locks out dozens of boats after harassment dispute. Every phone in the neighborhood was buzzing. News vans parked outside my gate, and there she was, Karen, in her pastel blazer, hiding behind sunglasses big enough to cover her shame. She didn't knock this time. She just stood there, staring at the locked gates of the Marina, where a brand new sign read in bold metal letters, "Private property access revoked until further notice." Behind that sign, hundreds of boats rocked quietly, the sun glinting off the waves like scattered gold. Her husband's fishing boat gone, the HOA president's yacht towed, even her best friend's jet ski locked behind chain link. Karen tried to speak, but her voice cracked under the weight of her own arrogance. You can't just..." I cut her off, calm as the tide. "Oh, but I can. You see, Karen, you called the cops on me for owning a boat. So now, I'm calling consequences on everyone who stood by and clapped." The officer standing beside her, the same one who'd handcuffed me 2 days ago, glanced between us, his expression unreadable. Then, almost like the sea itself was on my side, he nodded slowly and said, "He's within his rights, ma'am. Maybe next time, pick your battles wisely." Her face drained of color. The same woman who'd once strutted through board meetings now stood speechless, defeated, powerless against the truth she'd tried to bury under bylaws. That night, I walked down the dock alone. The air smelled of salt, steel, and second chances. I ran my hand along the polished wood railing, feeling every grain my father once built with his own hands. He used to say, A man's worth isn't measured by what he owns, but by how he protects it. For years, I thought that meant guarding my property. Now I realized he meant guarding my peace. As the sun set, the reflection of the water shimmered like liquid fire. Behind me, Karen's voice echoed faintly in the distance, pleading, bargaining, but I didn't turn back. Some storms aren't meant to be fought. Some are meant to be outlasted. 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail, no HOA stamp, no threats, just plain white paper with shaky handwriting. I'm sorry, I went too far. I forgot this community was built by people, not power, Karen. I read it twice, then folded it quietly and set it on the counter. Forgiveness didn't come easy, but peace did. The Marina reopened under new terms: no HOA access, no favoritism, no control. Just families, fishermen, and the sound of laughter bouncing across the waves again. And every time I see a new boat pulling in, I smile because they don't know the storm that once raged here. They just see calm waters, but I know the truth, that calm was earned. So the next time someone tries to shame you for what you've built, remember this: they can write rules. They can call cops. They can make noise, but they can't rewrite truth. They can't steal integrity, and they can't drown a person who learned how to breathe underwater. Because in the end, power isn't about control, it's about knowing when to let go. And when I finally did, the waves went quiet again. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more videos. Thank you.